Well, I've started 2021 with some serious concerns whether this is my end. Now I'm vibrantly healthy. I've lost 150 pounds in the 15 months after turning 50. I have founded an entirely new branch of philosophy, well-being philosophy, to talk about using logic plus love intertwined to evaluate human potential when we're on the cusp of every adult needing to figure out how to stop the insane thinking that created all this chaos and learn to use life-centric thinking to improve the way that we go about making decisions to save this failing civilization. Now, in the mid-1400s, a handful of things happened. Henry the Navigator of Portugal invented racism to help Portugal figure out how to expand capitalism via slavery. It's heinous. It's hard to believe that savagery of Northern European white men has went unchecked for so long. Every single member of the 7.8 billion humans across the globe is priceless human potential. And let me tell you something. It is the abuse of our kids the fear that generates and the greed that sets us all up to fight amongst ourselves for a very small portion of the abundance that's available to those who already have abundance. This game is entirely made up. So you see, when Portugal decided to start treating humans, because they're landlocked from the rest of Europe by Spain, so they used this invention of ocean sailing ships. They started interacting with Africans. The Africans did not manage to see depravity and inhumanity. I'm certain they were bamboozled. I mean, who can comprehend what was about to occur? Now, it is true that our species didn't just show up on Earth with a handbook about being humane. And in our early days of evolution, it made crucial sense to be wary of strangers, to fight them off, to go to war over resources. But now that the whole globe is mapped, now that there's barely, 2 handfuls of hunter-gatherer civilizations left, now that we've all been socialized and educated into cubicle captivity, into a global economic system that, we're worried about the tech singularity. I'm not, because I'm the biological singularity. But what we should be worried about is the digitization singularity. What that means is that with computing power, and this happened in the 80s, the Wall Street of the 80s, that greed coincided with such a rapid explosion of computing power and digital storage that billionaires have become almost certainly trillionaires. Those right up there. We know who the Jeffs and the Elons are, who have so much wealth that they've now nominated themselves to be emperors of entirely new planets. Yeah, women off of Venus. But men cannot fucking go to Mars until every Earthling has their basic needs met. According to the WHO, the World Health Organization, by 2024, like this many years, 50% of the globe's locales will be water-stressed regions. We have never come close to guaranteeing every child born non-diseased water. Making potable water has never been something that the capitalistic hegemony has ever prioritized. Super yachts, oh, they make them. They can start giving the rich the capacity to leave the planet entirely before we've ever come anywhere near generating adequate calories across the nutritional spectrum for every human. Certain locales, like America, has 27 times the calories any of us need. Where other locales have never ever been able to create more than 27% of an individual's caloric needs. Safe shelter. That's the domain that I may be in jeopardy of dying from. In the US of hypocrisy, I have spent 10 years unable to work due to a toxic mold exposure. I have spent 5 years relentlessly trying to build an online platform, and here it is, just me, myself, and I. Nobody else. There's lies about distribution of content. Is again back to the digitization singularity. What user has LinkedIn ever worked with to validate that their assumptions about the algorithm work? If you would do a sniffer, you would find that 97% of LinkedIn users believe the algorithm has not met their needs. Why that's happened is because the FB Mafia and the Google Osos have made any sort of access to the internet be a pay-to-play scenario. This means that us users of social media, people who are investing all of our life force, have no chance of beating. Again, the last 2 Tim Ferriss podcasts I listened to, Matthew McConaughey, Jerry Seinfeld. Get them, guys. It's both good and bad. You see, I listen to them. I haven't listened to Tim Ferriss in a while. I enjoy them tremendously. Hollering at the McConaughey. Socratic dialogue. You and I. And I do I have it? Do I have it? I have it. I have it. I have it. I have it. Matthew McConaughey. I'm so fearless. How fearless are you? Nearly 52-year-old woman. Couldn't give a damn about makeup. So this is this is fear. This breakout is entirely about the fact that my landlady can just decide to evict me. I don't know what to do. I'm in the process of trying to save my life health-wise. I've ended up in a neurocomplex situation where I've learned how to hibernate to stay alive. As somebody who was morbidly obese for the first 49 years of my life, the world just told me I was addicted to food. It never felt right. Nothing they ever said about how to fix it ever made any sense. I just woke up after turning 50 days. I was like, I'm going to get to know what it feels like to be lean. I've dedicated my life for nearly 2 years, 150 pounds gone, all kinds of vibrancy. Like I didn't even know that this is how a clavicle worked. It used to be, 50 more pounds in this whole general vicinity. Discovering how a body works kind of like almost from scratch when you are a 50-year-old wise feminine philosopher, this yields a whole bunch of brand new hypotheses. First of all, what is fat? It's human fat. Perfect onboard nutrition for every human who ages past breast. Breast milk and human fat are nutritionally the most complete substance that any human can use. Now, we're meant to have a cyclical, seasonal belly, pantry of stored fat to accommodate a long winter of famine. Why would evolution give a human being 5'6", 5'7", female, the ability to get up to 333 pounds? Why would I need that much onboard nutrition? It's very simple. I have been scared my whole life. Environmentally. The purpose of your body, because none of us decides to get fat. We barely realize it. Even when it starts ending up to be 50, 100, 200 extra pounds. I carried around with me. And how I managed to not end up with any metabolic disarray, why I have never went to Western medicine for help. Because you can manage all kinds of challenges to your physiology if you prioritize eating. So I was not addicted to food. Circumstances, the way I was taught to eat in my earliest days, my first year of life, was unintentionally so outside what I needed. Again, unintentionally. But it was so non-optimal that one of the core things that is supposed to happen in human development during our first year, and this is for all mammals, by the way. I actually learned this in a heart rate variability study on sheep. I was looking to find information on the development of the nervous system, and of course, as is often the case, mammalian research fills in the gaps. So this study about sheep and heart rate variability and tracking how that worked as a brand new lamb grew over its first, and again, as a year for the lambs, or I don't know. But there was just this one concept that mammals, all of us, use ingestion to regulate our nervous system when we're born. And that each mammal has various quick to long phases of then learning to use belonging, safety, the herd, to regulate our nervous system. Think about a herd of gazelle in the African plain. How they stay safe, how they regulate their nervous system, is the sensory mechanism of all of the border patrols. And that information spreads through the herd. The nervous system is all activated out in the environment of the herd. Humans, somewhere during our first year of life, are supposed to transition from using ingestion, sucking our mother's breasts, which did not happen for me. I was bottle fed from a plastic reconstituted powdered formula. And the plastic, I was nearly 5.5 when my younger brother was born. I remember those plastic bottles. I hated to touch them as a 5.5-year-old kid. I didn't like to prepare them for my brother. I like to move them from my mom preparing them to give them to her to. It was like there was like this plastic, baggie sleeve that had the reconstituted formula, and then there was like this scaffolding of plastic that it had, but it was like you could put your hands, but it was really early plastic. This was the early 70s, and it was rigid, and it was rough, and it probably, as it came apart from the mold, had all kinds of scratchy bits that hadn't been sanded down well. I was taught to need, apparently, 3 times the calories from lack of touch, lack of satiety, lack of, inputs that made me feel unsafe, such as just, supposed to be touching your mom, touching flesh, even like playing with your own toes. And instead, I'm holding this plastic scaffolding, holding reconstituted powder in a baggie underneath a plastic nipple. There were other things. I'm certain that something happened in that first year, and I do believe it was actually a mold exposure. Using my life, I've become neurocomplex and circulating around these things and have no one to talk to, which is why I just keep recording videos, talking to myself. Why? No humans. That belonging, that switch in that first year of life to regulating my nervous system based on humans, it didn't occur. I was good at using the substrates of food in great combinations to become a degreed philosopher from Carnegie Mellon, to work as a software consultant, traveling not just across the country, but also to Europe. I've traveled to Africa. I lived a successful life, and then the last decade, I lost my 40s. It has been so long since I went to a restaurant, seen live music. Y'all having trouble with this little pandemic situation. It's an entire decade. And people, when you have a chronic disease, and I'm an introvert, I want deep friendships. But I didn't learn this feeling of belonging. When you get scared as a human being, you hurt other human beings. And that explains the greed and the hate that defines America right now. I grew up amongst it, but because I didn't depend on any human, because I was so individualistic, I didn't take on any of the hidden dehumanization, the prejudices, the biases, these kinds of things didn't get in because I was alone. I paid for that. Trust me. The point of this, and we're coming up to a Jordan, is simply to say, I have survived, but I need help continuing to survive. 52 years is fucking long enough. I want to collaborate. I've spent the entirety of 2020 networking. I have been more extroverted than and again, I don't even think this decade counts, but take the previous decade when I was a software consultant. This 1 year, I've put myself out there. I've expanded myself. I've evaporated my body and allowed my mind to be able to express itself in this creative way. Now, rambling as this may seem, I'm here to tell you, I'm teaching you via stream of consciousness the skill of improvisation, the skill of having the capacity to be your own best friend and to have really intelligent conversations about what's possible for humans, what's went wrong, how we think about coming from this was wrong, this is possible. We've found the optimal pathway to save this failing civilization as we furnish it with life-centric thinking. All right. You all young. This has been Deb Helfrich at Gmail. Holler if you're ready to help the globe's original well-being philosopher launch her hashtag redheaded She-Hulk, one-woman improv, save our species from self-extinction, and to start spreading an improved TQ, thinking quotient, that it can be summed up by logic plus love intertwined. Logic alone leads to the world in chaos. Love alone We don't know. I can make some crazy statements. We never learn. We don't know what would happen if people were able to lead with love without monetary or warmongering or legal. We don't know. I think it'd be a really cool thing. But I don't think we need to go the full hippie. Logic plus love, both alphabetically and in priority. Love is rational. This whole unconditional situation. I mean, you do understand that our dogs are far too smart to have any sort of unconditional love for us. They will not. Our dogs don't have agendas. But think about the popularity of the dog whisperer. Think about all of the households in strife. This is a fundamental skill and capacity that I have. It's brand new. And as you can see, I was wrapping down and I was just, but really seriously thinking about the dog whisperer, holding in the fact that we say our dogs love us unconditionally, then holding in all of the dysfunction that the series The Dog Whisperer has proven exists in American canine interspecies households. So is it unconditional love, or is it on the dog whisperer stat? Now, the dog whisperer is an interesting thing, again, back to logic plus love and why logic comes first. There's no question that as a human being, the dog whisperer, Cesar Millan, his rapport with canines is impressive. But he's a whack theoretician. That whole dominant submission model, it's not necessary for us, for humans, for dogs, for our livestock. It doesn't happen in the wild. It's extraneous. It is a use of caloric energy that only makes sense when you are sociopolitically conditioned into that kind of nonsense. There were some studies on wolves, this whole dominant submission thing. They were captive and or domesticated wolves. And you take a bunch of non-related adults of any species of mammal, just keep it right there, but most species anyway. I mean, lizards aren't communal, so I don't have much data on birds. So, but any species of mammal, if you try to make non-related adults cohabitate, like in a cage, which is how they are studying these wolves. Because remember, at the time, prior to the last 10, 15 years, wolves were entirely extinct in the continental US. And there were some up in Canada, but they're literally not even in like Yellowstone. They've only recently come back. So these wolves that were being studied on this dominant submission, they were captive and domesticated to some extent. They were certainly penned. They were certainly non-related adults forced to collude in circumstances not of their own choosing. And then the war games commence. In the wild, there is no rationale that allows this kind of internecine struggling to be a wise use of calories. Calories that require immense effort. Calories that are never guaranteed. Nature doesn't create armies. Nature doesn't create the processes and procedures of armies. Nature has the occasional practice war game, although mostly they're, you don't dry run taking down an elk. It's dangerous. And, there is definitely something to be said that it does require practice, and it does require, will have been failures and learning and all that kind of stuff. But you're not going to hold a grudge, and you're not going to demote the strongest, fastest male because he's not going to get to mate with your queen. You starve to death by not wanting, by having a sexual rivalry. So the dog whisperer is a miserable theoretician. I wrote a book called Second, A Tale of Grief and Puppy Love. And I did a lot of research. Our dogs are scavengers. At one point, they had a common ancestor with wolves, but they're really very much not hunters. Some breeds continue to be bred for certain hunting traits like birders, terriers. But overall, unless humans, then we got together and again, we played the war game and created the structure of the army. Rat terriers do this on the farm and birders do that out in the fields. Our dogs scavenged historically. And how do you get the proof of this? This is how I get the proof of everything about humans, and is pointing out that we are all Africans ancestrally. There's a book called The Dogs of Pemba. Pemba is an island north of Zanzibar. My dog is named Zanzi. And the dogs of Pemba, right now, and in Mexico even, close as Mexico, there are a great deal of wild dogs who are just dump dogs, scavengers, completely free, roaming, free range. They have words if somebody tried to take somebody's prized piece of garbage, but they don't have colonels and generals and infantrymen and such and so forth. They cooperate. They really do. Again, the people on, just like the herds of gazelles, the dogs on the out, people are coming, or a brand new truck full of brand new loot. They're all gonna know. So that's that. Logic plus love intertwined. Using evolutionary logic, looking at our mammalian cousins, looking to Africa for ancestral wisdom. I have so much to offer in 2021. Please help me to not be homeless. Deb Helfrich at Gmail.